Today we have on Mr. Landon Horst. Landon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So since it's been a while since you've been on the podcast, wanted to have you give a quick intro to the audience, let them know who you are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Landon. I'm a registered dietitian and a personal trainer. I work at Billings Clinic, and I run what's called the Weight Smart program that we do there. That's our medical weight management program. Do a little bit of personal training there, but I used to be a trainer at Granite with Ryan.
Like 7 years ago now.
We go way back.
Go ways, yeah. So I know one of the things that you had wanted to talk about today was goals. I wanted to look at as far as like positive goal setting versus negative goal setting, or like we were talking earlier, like an approach setup versus a avoidance setup for goals. Could you give a little breakdown of what the difference is between those two?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So, and I was telling you before the podcast too, I feel like this can be as simple as like your approach versus avoidance daily actions, but also like maybe overarching goals. And so just to give kind of a summary here, approach goals would be something that you're kind of trying to go towards or incorporate into your life that's a positive thing. So a good example from a nutrition standpoint might be, rather than trying to cut out carbs, trying to include more protein, right? Because it's kind of a positive thing, something that you're seeking out. Whereas an avoidance goal would be kind of the carbohydrate thing, right? Which is, trying to avoid carbohydrates or limit something. And the research on this just shows that, obviously better outcomes on the goals, people tend to achieve them. But even more than that, there's, more stress, anxiety, things like that, even insecurity with the avoidance approach, and more like kind of positive outcomes mentally and psychologically with approach goals.
Exactly. Well, even just thinking on like a very basic level with an approach goal, it's kind of easy to think like, well, okay, I'm chasing more protein today. I'm trying to get that, or I'm trying to get more vegetables or whatever. Versus that avoidance goal, you're never technically done until you've gone to sleep that night. Because you're always like, well, shit, I could still screw this up. I could still have carbs or still smoke a cigarette or whatever it is I'm trying to avoid. So it's pretty easy to see why that would be a more stressful way to approach things.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, it's maybe more of like the constant, like it's fear-based really, and yeah, I think you're right. It's like the job's never done.
Well, it's almost like if you think of it from like a reward perspective, every time like I have my protein or I get in my lift or something like that, I'm kind of getting little wins throughout the day. I'm kind of getting a reminder of like, okay, I'm doing the right thing here versus you don't get that with the avoidance goal. You're just constantly afraid that you're going to screw it up.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to celebrate wins with avoidance goals.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's like there's really only like something worth celebrating or being upset about when you blow it. If you eat a carb in this example, you really only give yourself a chance to like be upset with yourself rather than like building confidence,
Definitely. Again, I think a lot of times when we're on our own too, we do tend to navigate to more of a negative approach for a lot of things. Again, it's kind of like how you never give yourself credit for your small wins, but you beat yourself up over small losses.
Yeah. I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, and I guess with this being strength stories, I haven't, but, I've been telling people if you're going to beat yourself up for kind of blowing it or going off track, you have to bring the same energy when you do something positive and celebrate it, because it's true. Someone would go to the gym like, maybe they missed a week. They beat themselves up for weeks about it, right? But then there's a week where they go 3 times and there's like no pat on the back, right? It's kind of like, well, yeah, it's just what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I'm trying to remember what this research on says, and I feel like I always verbalize this poorly, but what is it? If you like say, if you're trying to lose weight, if you gain 1 pound, you need to lose 2 pounds to get like the equivalent positive energy of like that negative energy from gaining 1 pound.
Oh, like the momentum.
Yeah, exactly. Like we get really mad about losing things, and don't give ourselves that same congratulations for making positive steps.
Yeah. I've heard that kind of same psychology almost with money, right? Like if you have it, it's worse losing it than if you didn't have it, but you didn't get it or something. And so one of the main things that kind of had me thinking about approach goals and avoidance goals here is, I work in weight loss, obviously. And, a lot of times you hear that weight loss is not the issue. It's keeping the weight off, right? And I started thinking about it more, that really we've kind of framed that as an avoidance goal, that once you reach your goal weight, now your job is to avoid regaining the weight. And I think, like you said, it's this constant stressor of like,
you're living in fear for the rest of your life, basically.
Yeah, like that you might regain the weight. And I think what it leads to is like pushing the boundaries. You're like trying to get away with as much as you can without regaining the weight, and that's what tends to spiral, right? And so the approach I've been taking with folks is trying to, when they reach a goal weight, it's not that we need to keep like trying to go for a lower weight, but what are like positive things we could work on that also achieve our goal of maybe, not regaining the weight. And it's probably like branching out a lot of times. It's like, yeah, you're eating the right amount of calories, but maybe now we could work on including more vegetables or more fruits or more consistency with something.
I think you can make strong case too that this is why people who've lost weight and then regained it struggle so much in restarting that, because it's the fear of like the disappointment of reaching my goal and knowing that now I've got to try to keep it off this time, and that fear of, am I just going to go back the same thing again? Versus if you've already regained the weight from previous one, you're like, well, at least I'm just sitting here, like it's not as big of a deal.
Right. You don't feel like you're going to disappoint
Yeah,
yourself.
you're not failing because you didn't start a new thing yet.
Yeah. That's like a dodgeball quote, is it? You just keep your goals low so they're easy to meet.
Always easy to meet. Feels fantastic.
I was trying to think of kind of, also some of the overarching goals like I talked about, right? So not even just with like weight regain, thinking about avoiding the weight. Sometimes it's also about like, are you just trying to avoid the social stigma or, the judgment from your friends, things like that, rather than maintaining your weight because you're trying to move towards a healthier lifestyle or, achieve something new, something like that.
Definitely. Well, it's even kind of like how with some people who do like say an in-body scan and the weight's gone up, but their muscle mass is up and their percentage body fat's down. And they're worried about what's like, well, I'm supposed to weigh, 127 or whatever. It's like, okay, but if you look like you weigh that or less, who gives a shit? Like no one else sees that scale but you.
Right.
But we're still worried about something that literally only me and the client actually sees.
And it also made me think, when you're discussing kind of the calorie burn, right? Mm-hmm. That focus on performance also takes away the focus on the calories.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people are going to the gym for that reason. It's like, I've got to burn 900 calories or whatever. And that, it never feels like you're progressing if you just go to burn the same amount of calories every day. And you're probably not getting those same kind of strength training benefits that you might.
Yeah.
And I also think this is another important reason that you need to be progressing in the gym. You see a lot of folks that we've talked about it before, people that you've seen for like 5 years at the gym and they're lifting the same weights.
Yep.
And it's really good that they're in their strength training, but you wonder like what's keeping them motivated just lifting the same weight every day. And even if like a very small incremental increase can be something to keep you kind of engaged with your goals.
And keeping yourself from becoming too efficient. Like obviously we want efficiency in a lot of things in life, but again, it's kind of like the person who does the same 30 minutes on the elliptical every day at the same speed. At a certain point, you're just burning less and less calories each time you do that. So which again is not always the whole goal of cardio, but if you're using that as a way to burn more calories for fat loss, it's just becoming less and less. So it's like you have to increase speed or you have to increase like the time you're going or find some variable that you can increase. Otherwise, you're just getting less and less out of it every time you do it from a calorie burn perspective, at least.
Right.
Like obviously it's good to be efficient cardiovascular as far as your overall health, but I don't think most people that use it are using it for that way.
I would agree with you. And sometimes even if they say they are, it's actually, kind of secretly for weight loss.
Well, kind of similar. Like I've noticed I get a lot of clients, which obviously I have more of a strength focus. So when people come to me, I think they generally know like that's going to be our approach. But it is funny to me how often like we'll fill out our initial intake, we go through and they're like, oh, okay, my goal is I want to be stronger. I want this, I want that. And then like 3 weeks later, be like, well, but I do still want to lose weight. And it's like, it's funny, it's like they're almost afraid to say that I do. Which is again, it's like, I'm perfectly fine working with someone for weight loss, but you got to let me know that right away. It can't like, don't just pretend that you're here for strength when really you're just hoping to secretly lose 10 pounds without me knowing or something.
Yeah, without having to talk about it. Yeah. Well, right. And I think that we have kind of like scared ourselves off of weight loss so much, which makes sense with people's, I think, kind of overall experience with it. But it's also really hard to be successful with it unless you can pay attention to it a little bit. And I've seen this kind of with like people weighing themselves. I don't know how that plays out with like your clientele. But I get a wide range, of course, people that weigh themselves every day and people that won't weigh themselves, for any reason, essentially. And I think sometimes that's kind of avoiding, what you're really working on in a way. And it's not to say that everyone has to weigh themselves every day, but again, if that is something you're wanting to work on, it might be worth doing it, And a lot of times it comes down to kind of adjusting your relationship with the scale, maybe?
Well, I think this is where, and I mean, I don't kind of just blame America, because I think we see this in societies in general. There's always these massive swings in the pendulum. And yeah, like we had this massive diet culture, and, you know, thin was in, and everything was about being skinny, and nothing tastes better than being skinny feels and all this shit. And then eventually became the stigma of like, well, now you can't talk about diet at all. And we can't talk about weight loss, and diet culture is toxic. And there's a lot of bad things about diet culture, but it's still okay to want to lose weight. You shouldn't hate yourself for wanting to lose weight, but it's still okay to lose weight.
Yeah.
And I think we're at this point now where it's like, okay, can we find kind of that middle ground of like, don't be super toxic, but also if you feel like you need to lose 10 pounds and you can love yourself regardless, like that's okay.
Yeah. And that is the goal, right? It's like not just to lose weight, but to do it in a way that feels good and is going to feel good long term so that you can maintain it. Which really comes down to a lot of times how you start it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like what's the mindset you're going into it with?
Yeah, exactly. If you go into it with a browbeating approach, it's highly unlikely you're going to go into it and find this positive thing. It's not a movie. Like you're not going to halfway through realize the inner beauty was in there all along type of thing. Like and again, I really think the mindset matters more than anything. Like I've had people before where they're in that like, I need to lose the weight now. And you could just feel this almost just toxic energy just when they walked in the room. Because again, everything was about how many calories can I burn in here? When really, of course, the approach should have been like, how can I do better with my nutrition outside of here, and then use this to support that goal?
Right.
But instead it was like, well, can I do burpees in between sets of squats? It's like, no, that's not what we fucking do here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and it's that kind of thought process that like doing more is going to make up for maybe other shortcomings. You know, it's like maybe not being able to be spot on with the diet, but you're going to do burpees between your sets to
it comes back to the very beginning there. It's an avoidance thing of like, because again, they never hit their goal with an avoidance mindset. So it's like, what if I screw up later today? Maybe I better burn 10 extra calories, and that's somehow going to offset having buffet later. You know, it's like they're worried about it because they're already anticipating failing later on in the day. So they've got to bank as much of those calories as they can.
Right. They're like padding their their day a little bit.
I've never thought of it like that, but it really, again, I really like this approach of the avoidance mindset of just how much you can see that pair back into other stuff they're doing later on in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, I think just starting with approach goals also helps people develop a more positive mindset in general and catch themselves doing kind of an avoidance goal, even if it's just like a mini one, like, you know, I need to avoid that, whatever it is.
And it is funny because, again, everything goes into fear, because what sells in the media is generally fear. And what you see sells is always these, fear-based mindsets of like, oh, you know, less and less and less. Versus basically every single nutrition thing either of us have taken has focused on how can we add more. Like you look at precision nutrition, they're not telling people do less of this, do less of that. Instead, it's how can I fit in more protein? How can I fit in more veggies? How can I fit in more movement throughout the day? Yeah. And whether or not we say it's an approach goal or avoidance goal, it's like the good nutrition places generally go there anyways, however it is they phrase it.
Right. And the thing is, you kind of achieve the same thing in the end, right? Like if you're including more protein, vegetables, those sorts of things, oftentimes you're eating fewer carbs, you know, kind of going back to our carb example. And so, it's like the same outcome, but with a much more positive way of being about it. You know?
It's kind of like the thing of they used to say, like, you know, if you want to be an athlete, train like an athlete. Don't necessarily worry about trying to cut down and all this stuff. It's like, but you focus on performance. A lot of times the aesthetics come with it.
Right.
It's weird. Almost never do you train for aesthetics and get performance out of it. But I find for a lot of people, if they just, you know, again, don't eat it like an asshole, but if you just generally focus on performance, a lot of that look that you're looking for comes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Without the like just extreme focus on the aesthetic piece. Yeah.
Yeah. And probably too, because you're just more relaxed in general throughout that. Like, you're not as worried about things because you're focusing on positives.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I've tried to even kind of apply this to people's maybe relationship with exercise or food, because sometimes you have to say no to things, you know? And so, you know, I work with folks that have had like metabolic surgery, right? And so oftentimes they like literally cannot eat something because they'll have, you know, terrible GI issues. But I always try to tell them, you know, if you have to say no to something, try to think about what are you actually choosing that is positive, right? It's like, I'm not saying no to this to avoid gaining weight or avoid this GI issue. I'm saying no to this because I have these overarching goals that are much more important to me. And so really I'm saying yes to those, you know, not no to this.
I'm saying no to the methamphetamine because I don't want to have to be like jacking people later to get money. It's like,
right, exactly.
Positive.
That's how you flip it on its head.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. So to finish here, I wanted to kind of look at a couple of like overrated, underrated things as far as weight loss, and just kind of get a quick, some quick little answers on those.
Oh, let's do it.
Would you say step count is overrated or underrated for weight loss?
Absolutely underrated. You probably saw that coming from me. I talk about steps all the time. And I tell people this constantly. If weight loss is the goal, steps are the main driver from a movement standpoint, right? And your next priority should be strength training because that's how we maintain the muscle mass. And kind of the least priority is the like specific cardio, running, cycling. But the reason I like steps so much versus like cardio, for example, is that you tend to like not tire yourself out with steps, right? And so by just walking more throughout the day, you don't tire yourself out. Whereas if you did a really, really hard cardio workout in the morning, you might kind of like sandbag it the rest of the day, and you really wouldn't get as much out of it from a calorie burn perspective.
I feel a lot of times too, people who just focus on steps generally have better workouts and feel better in general because they're not doing one hard workout and then sitting on a chair for 15 straight hours. Like, of course you feel like shit the next day. Like you haven't moved basically.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like we're burning a ton of calories with that little movement, although I think research does generally show like the people who stay moving throughout the day just naturally stay leaner.
Yep.
But even if that's not our main focus, since you're moving more, you're going to feel a little bit looser the next day. You don't need to require these huge warm-ups, or you don't, develop back pain from sitting for 10 straight hours, and just numerous benefits.
Right. And again, it's kind of snowballing in a positive way, right? If you feel better, then you move a little bit more even, and it keeps kind of going in a positive direction.
Exactly.
Plus, I feel like steps are just something that's accessible to everybody, so you don't need any special equipment really. And if you can't walk, I guess that's kind of the first priority is maybe getting the strength back to do that. But kind of always trying to keep those up.
How about exact meal times?
Ooh, exact meal times for weight loss specifically. I actually do try to kind of encourage people to eat at similar times each day. And it's not that the timing like throughout the day is all that important. It's the consistency from day to day that I like. And a lot of what I talk about is kind of training your hunger in a way. Because, a lot of times I have people working and they're tracking their calories, but eventually we want to get away from that, and you have to be kind of familiar with your hunger and fullness cues. Well, if you eat at different times every day, your hunger hits at different times every day. It gets really chaotic. You'll have days where you're not hungry, days where you're starving. Whereas if, you eat at like within an hour of the same time each day, you'll find that your hunger starts to line up to that mealtime.
So even before I was a trainer, I used to be like, I'd get up at 4:30 to go work out, and I had to eat right away, like I'm dying hungry. Well, being a trainer, you can't really do it unless you're gonna again get up stupid early to eat. So I kind of just trained myself to be ready to eat at 7 o'clock, and now my body's like I can get through my 6 o'clock class, and like towards the end of something, I'm like, oh yeah, now I'm getting kind of hungry, and it's like I said, it is a very trainable thing. It's not always fun initially when you're doing that training, but it takes couple weeks usually, if that really.
2 weeks is what I say. And it's a lot of people have kind of a defeatist mindset with this where they're like, no, I'm not a breakfast person, and it's like, well, you could try, and so maybe they'll do it for a couple days and then give up because they're like, no, I just can't eat. But you're right, you got to stick with it a little while for your hunger to kind of line up. I found this with like switching to a different job. It was like my lunch was at a different time now, so my snacks were kind of moved around. And so at first it was a little bit like threw me off. I'm like, oh, well, I'm hungry now and it's not time to eat yet. But yeah, 2 weeks, a month now, when lunchtime rolls around, it's like, yep, I'm hungry.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking earlier about like retaining muscle mass, where there are so many things in life where like a lot of work in the short term like makes it much easier in the long term. And it's like, yes, initially changing your eating schedule is going to be kind of tough, but if it makes it easier to stick to the plan for the rest of your life, essentially, it's like, isn't a few weeks of like a little bit of an uncomfortability worth it for that?
I always like to compare it to starting a new job. It's like when you first start a new job, there's so much to learn and it's a lot of effort up front. But it seems like you do it for, even 6 months, it starts to become kind of second nature. And I think like nutrition, fitness, a lot of that stuff falls into the same boat. Whereas if you can kind of get over that initial hump of all the effort it requires and get to where some of it becomes kind of more second nature autopilot, that just bodes well for you in the long term a lot of times.
I mean, even so at one of the conferences I was just at last week, they literally talked about that too. And they showed like the people with less variance for meal times like had better weight loss. Like,
Yep.
which again, it shouldn't be that surprising. Like,
Right.
because they have a plan. You were not, oh shit, I forgot to eat lunch, and then now we eat this crazy big supper because we just spiraled and we blow past our hunger signals type thing.
Yeah. And there's not really anything like special about it. You know,
No.
it's like intermittent fasting, right? It's like, well, yeah, they just eat less because they don't have as much time to eat a lot of times. And same with meal timing. It's not like that having perfectly timed meals makes weight loss more optimal. It's just that it helps you stick to it long term.
You think of it this way, is like we train kindergartners how to be hungry at certain times. Like if a kindergartner can do it as an adult, you should probably be able to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, you know, that sticking to it long enough to make it happen, really.
And then next one I was on is cardio for weight loss. Overrated, underrated? Feel where you can go there.
I think, you know, overrated is probably where I'd have to stand on that, just because I do kind of think that, well, strength training should probably be more of a priority anyway. And then I'm a big fan of steps, which I guess you could call cardio in a way, maybe. I don't know.
But we're probably not seeing the same adaptation. I mean, I think we're thinking of two different things, but
Right.
I think it's helpful. It can be helpful and it's good for your overall health, but it's against like, how are you using the tool?
Yeah. You know, and kind of something that's similar to this is also getting your heart rate up, which you should definitely do for your heart health. But a lot of people feel that they're not going to lose weight if their heart rate's not up. And so they don't think that walking or steps are going to do anything for them, because they're like, yeah, but my heart rate didn't get up.
Well, and I think we've talked about this before. And again, this is just kind of a not a conspiracy theory, but a theory of mine.
Okay.
I really do think for a lot of people doing high intensity stuff, whether it's like a finisher at the end of a workout or a Metcon or whatever you want to call it, I don't think that helps for weight loss as much from what it actually does in terms of like cardio or calories burned or anything like that. I think really what it does, it gets people's heart rate up, it gets them sweating, and it makes them think, oh, I'm in a fat loss phase.
Yep.
And then like naturally they make better decisions throughout the day and they might lose more weight.
Yep.
Versus someone who's, say focusing just on steps and they're doing heavy strength training. I think if their nutrition is the same, I think you can get the exact same results, but one of them doesn't feel like weight loss because we haven't been told by like the media and movies like that's what weight loss is.
Yeah.
So I think people just naturally make worse decisions throughout the day, and then they blame it on the fact, well, it's because I didn't, do 3 rounds on the assault bike, as though 3 minutes of that was really the big difference,
Right. Yeah, that's true. It kind of goes back to their mindset, and I know I've told you this before, but I've had folks like start with nutrition and I kind of prescribe some treadmill walks and things just because it makes them feel like they're working on it, in a way. But really, the aim is to just get more steps in.
It's kind of no different than like with personal training, where sometimes I give an exercise that I don't think is necessarily the world's greatest exercise, but I know that it gives them buy-in and it just makes them work harder throughout the workout in general. So it's like if we put in 2 throwaway sets of bicep curls and that lets them like enjoy the workout and stay more consistent, it's like, whatever, it's 3 minutes. We can, do that.
Yeah. Well, and I know we've mentioned that before about like the recency bias with training, right? So finishing with something that kind of leaves the client feeling like it was really what they wanted.
Yeah, it's like, was it you remember the last thing of the workout and you remember like the high point of the workout or the peak end roll? There we go.
Yeah. Oh, right. It has a name, huh?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Got to read your Heath Brothers books.
Damn.
Last one here. I feel like I'm just asking questions we're going to agree on, but exact carb and fat ratios for losing weight.
Okay, yeah. And it, obviously I think it's a little bit overrated just because the focus I take is always, more protein and kind of controlling the calories, which really, I try to explain this to people and I find it kind of difficult that if you do control your calorie intake, you kind of by definition control your fat and carb intake, right? And so it's just something that you don't have to focus on unless maybe you're at like a top tier performance level where it really matters.
Yeah.
But again, I think this kind of plays back into what we were just talking about, where sometimes when people don't have those, they feel like, they can
just free ball it anyway.
Yeah, they just kind of go off the rails because they're like, I need more rigidity or something,
Yeah.
So I have even like put fat and carb goals in for someone in that situation.
And that's what I found too, is that I will sometimes give it to people if like, same thing, if their consistency is off because they don't feel it's rigid enough. Okay, whatever, we can give you these specific numbers. But Alan Aragon, who's again a god of nutrition stuff, he just had a post about that today. Is like every single study you see, as long as calories were accounted for and protein was accounted for, it didn't matter. Yeah. So I always tell people like, as long as you get at least 20% of your calories from fat, which is generally considered good for as far as hormone health and whatnot, and you're, everything else stays reasonable. I'm like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. again, if it matters for you, then fine, we'll get a little more specific. But
Right.
it's majoring in the minors for most people.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and really it's like you don't have to focus on it that much to have a good carb fat balance. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like I don't think anyone's going to eat a zero fat diet on accident, you know? So yeah, and again, it is kind of giving you too many things to focus on when it's unnecessary a lot of times.
No, exactly. Awesome. Well, Mr. Horst, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you at the next one.
Okay, sounds good.